Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Best Books Ever. I'm Tyler, as always. And today we're starting a new one. Same series, but we're starting book 3 of Percy Jackson, The Titan's Curse by Rick Riordan, of course. Chapters 1 through 10. And yeah, this is kind of, I think I mentioned it last time, but this is kind of um, where my memory starts to really nosedive. First book, got it on lock. Like I could have probably told you beat for beat what happens in that book, um, if I were challenged. But Sea of Monsters, a little less so. I did forget about Tyson, and then I remembered him immediately. Um, but same thing where like I pretty much knew what was happening in that one. Titan's Curse, I'm kind of just like I am honestly not sure. Uh, didn't really remember it at all. So going into this time is very interesting, very fun for me because it's like, oh man, I don't know what happens, and I still really don't know how it ends. You know, don't really remember, but we'll obviously get to that next week when we get to the end of the book. But there's a lot of really interesting stuff I think that happened in this one too. A lot of like introductions to certain characters and also certain ideas. Um, that I wonder how they'll play on the second half of the book, or even I mean at this point, second half of the series, as it stands. I know there's other books. We're not really going to cover those, but let's start at the end, right? They ended up killing the big lion monster thing. I thought that was cool. I mean, one, I feel like Rick Riordan doesn't go very long without having some sort of action set piece. So I mean, it opened up with one, right, with the whole like Dr. Thorne stuff, and then the hunters. We'll get to the hunters in a second, but we did have a big one to kind of end out this halfway point. Really cool. Couldn't hit the outside of them, got to hit the inside. So that's kind of like a classic monster creature type trope where it's like, oh, you got to kill him from the inside. So that was pretty cool. But I think the more like character centric impact moment that happened with that was Zoe giving Percy the pelt of the lion monster. And I think that's important because one, I mean, it showed like it kind of reinforced that she has rules, right? She has rules when it comes to like how she lives her life, how she interacts, especially in battle. So she couldn't be like, well, he's a boy, he doesn't deserve it. Like, no, like if you killed the thing, if you bested the enemy in battle, you get the trophy. Like that's just how it works. Go against I'm not gonna go against the rules that we all have set up here as hunters just because it's a boy, right? So, I think that's very honorable of her. But then past that, like, there was the kind of discussion over like, well, you're the one who kind of took it out. It's like, yeah, but it was your plan. Like, maybe wouldn't think, maybe wouldn't have thought of that. Maybe wouldn't have thought of it in time. Um, so I think that was really cool, like giving him credit. And then also like, Rick made it a point to say that, Zoe slightly smirked or whatever. So that was kind of what I was hoping for. Like, when I was reading this and the hunters got introduced, um, which we have a little bit more hunter stuff to get into because this part in this book seemingly very hunter focused, very Artemis focused, very much the catalyst to everything. But um, as I was reading, I was like, oh man, the hunters are just so unlikable. Like they have a code. You got to respect that. But it's just it's tough to like them, because we've been on Camp Half Blood side this whole series, right? Like we've known them this whole time. We've grown to love people like Percy, Grover, Annabeth, Chiron, all those guys. And so for another group to be like, well, there's actually Camp Half Blood isn't the only way that Half Bloods can train and get ready. Like you can also join the Hunters. Um, no boys, obviously, but it's still like, well, hold on now. What do you mean there's another place? Like Camp Half Blood is legit, So you kind of have that like twinge inside of your chest where it's like, no, Camp Half Blood is the one and only. They're the best. Why would anyone join the Hunters? Um, they have good benefits though. Immortality, pretty cool. No love though, unless I wonder if like jumping out of the book for a second. I wonder if like with things like that, the Hunters, with it being all females, I wonder if there is like uh, romantic feelings and romantic things that happen within or between the members of the Hunters. If like that ever gets introduced, probably not in these books. Maybe. I mean, I wouldn't be mad at it. It'd be the opposite. It's cool representation and all that. But like, there's gotta be stories there where it's like, oh, we're maidens for life. It's like, yeah, but that doesn't mean that you don't have like relationships and stuff. Maybe it does. I don't know. That's just a thought that I had. But yeah. So anyway, we're circling back to the moment. So yeah, that is what I was hoping for though with the Hunters is like, I hope that they soften up towards everyone else, especially, people like Percy, who's the main character. Because it's just so sad to see like, oh man, I want to like these characters because they're not bad characters. You know what I mean? They're not poorly written. They don't seem like terrible people. It's just they're currently written in a way that they don't like they are directly butting heads with our main character, our main lovable Percy. Um, so that's very tough. But yeah, the end there, it's like, oh, maybe at least she does start to respect Percy a little bit, and maybe she realizes that Percy is not this like evil monster, just because of his boyness, right? Maybe it is like, oh no, he does actually care, like he really cares. Um, so cool stuff there. Killed the monster too, so that's big. And connected to that, why was the lion monster there? Because Luke and the general are there. Always scary to see Luke anywhere because we know that he's connected with Kronos and that whole thing. So, not a because at first when the scene happened, I was like, that's a pretty big coincidence for Luke to be there when our quest crew is there as well. Big coincidence? No, it's not. They set them up for this to happen this way. Luke, the general, all those guys they are kind of like pulling the strings and uh, setting down all the breadcrumbs so that our quest crew happens here. Because they want to. They're not a fan of the Hunters. They do have some beef with the Hunters that we don't quite know the specifics of yet. Specifically, the general seems to have beef with Zoe. I'm not sure why. But more importantly, they want to capture Thalia, it seems, because she is a very powerful half-blood. Again, that just goes back to Chiron and other people as well, but they're like warnings towards Percy where it's like, you are a child of the big three. You are inherently more powerful, more important than other half-bloods, um, you know, just because of your parentage. So yeah, that's awful. Luke doing his thing, obviously we set him aside. The general, don't know who the general is yet. I'm sure maybe if, you had more knowledge of your just Greek mythology, you probably could have guessed by now, but I'm not really sure. It's not Kronos. It seems to be Kronos is possibly like right-hand man. I mean, his general, right? Um, he's powerful though. That is the other voice that Percy was hearing. Um, Raising up soldiers, all that stuff. So very interested to see that reveal of like who he actually is, because even like um, again, like if I knew my Greek mythology more, I probably could have guessed who it was because they did have a little bit of a description of him. Um, but yeah, I'm not sure. I'll be excited for the reveal to happen. I'm sure when they actually meet, because they will meet, like the general and his crew and Percy and the quest crew. I'm sure they will come face to face at some point in the book. I feel like it'd be weird if they didn't. I'm sure he'll reveal, or someone will just know. They'll be like, "Oh no, it's." I mean, Zoe and the hunters seem to know who it is. They keep calling him by the general, um, which is a very clever way for like Rick Riordan to keep surprises, because they establish very early on that names are powerful, and so you're not really just supposed to say people's names. You know, Percy kind of does it willy nilly because he's an idiot. in many cases, but also he's pretty powerful, so he kind of has that little weird clashing happening. But like, you're not just supposed to throw around Kronos. You know what I mean? You're not supposed to say that. So that's a very clever way for Rick to kind of set that up in his books to be like, oh, we don't say their names. So that's cool. Very powerful though. I'm excited to see their encounter and see what happens. Because if he is essentially like the most powerful thing they face so far, it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough. We do have two children of the big three here to help. Some very capable hunters. Um, Grover is also here. Very helpful though, I will say. He was the one that was kind of confusing everyone else with his flute playing, pan flute type thing. So that was cool. Um, so yeah, very excited to see more of the general. Let's get some more stuff down. What else do we got? Um, One moment I did, and this does kind of sort of tie into Zoe. Um, I really liked when Mr. D caught Percy and was like, "Did you?" He was like, "Did you not think I wouldn't have noticed that you left?" And I like Percy, like, I mean, yeah, kind of. I did say, honestly, I totally thought I would get away with it. But I, I do like that he caught him. Um, I like the story he told, even if I don't agree with it. He basically, to sum it down, he did tell a story about, heroes betraying, right? Heroes making promises, breaking them, being very selfish, all that stuff. Um, while I may empathize with his story, I don't think it's fair to just be like, well, all heroes are the same. Like you'll do something similar at some point. Thalia will do something. Annabeth, like all you guys who think you're heroes, think you are the cream of the crop, think that you can do no wrong. You all are selfish, and you will all do very selfish, possibly, uh, you know, life-threatening things for your own needs, whatever in the future, right? I don't think it's really fair to just put them all in a pot like that. I mean, because Percy, I don't know. I mean, they are kind of building that up though, because I will say in like books 1 and 2, we didn't really see a whole lot of that. Like Percy being selfish and sort of taking everything on. Like, um, I mean, if anything, I feel like we've seen the opposite, where even at the end of book 1, we saw Percy. He very easily could have been like, no, this is my mom. Like, my mom is coming with me. Or not with me. Maybe he gives it up and he gives Sally, Annabeth, and Grover the magic bubbles out of here, and he stays. That would have been a pretty selfish thing to do, to save his mom. And it's like, no, we need you to be saved, to help deliver the bolt, to help figure out what's going on with Hades, all that stuff, to recover the helm. Like, if Percy stayed with Hades in there, would have gotten trapped by him, maybe like a prisoner of some sort. The helm would have never gotten recovered because Ares would have just kept it, right? Um, Lightning bolt, very low possibility that the lightning bolt would have gotten. Well, no, there's 0% chance because the lightning bolt was in Percy's bag, right? So again, that would have been a very selfish thing to be like, but my mom, you know, so just like stuff like that, where it's like, I don't really think we've seen evidence of it until this book, and I think Rick knows what he's doing. Where there's been 2 or 3 different moments where Percy decides to just do something, right? Like he probably should have called out to Thalia, Annabeth, all them guys, and actually tried a little harder to find them before running off uh, to Dr. Thorne to try to save the siblings, right? Probably should have, right? But he just kind of took it all on his own. Same thing with Capture the Flag, right? Where it's like, I am the hero. I am going to save everyone. I'm going to take the flag. When in actuality, Thalia is, or maybe even is at the same level, or even like better than him, more powerful than him, more, has more experience than him possibly, and she, probably, quite possibly did not need his help in the slightest with that. But he decided, I'm going to be the hero. So I think they did introduce it, at least a couple different moments where Mr. D is not 100% incorrect. Um, I just don't like the um, all-encompassing assumption of it, where it's like, oh, well, all heroes do it. Like, you are going to betray people. You're going to, um, you know, throw caution to the wind for your own heroism, right? I also don't think that's fair. He's like 14. Like I don't know. I just don't think it's fair. Um, but then we do get some stuff there with Zoe. We're going to connect it back there with um, seemingly Zoe, it seems, was betrayed by someone. I had, when I was reading this, again, I have read this before, always want to try to make that clear. Um, no spoilers, obviously. Never give spoilers beyond the point in which we have read currently. Um, and plus, I don't even remember, But when I was reading this, I was thinking, I was predicting. I mean, one, we are going to hear the story. Like, Zoe is going to say something. I feel like that little moment with her at the end is her starting to soften up towards Percy. And I think there's going to be another moment where Zoe does tell Percy, like, you want to know why? This is why. This is, like, beyond the whole hunter, maiden, oath, and whatever. This is why I don't trust men, like mortal men or whatever, right? Whether it's in a fit of anger, frustration, or whether it is just like, okay, I'll tell you, sort of thing. My guess would be that she did fall in love at some point, maybe even when she was already a hunter, something like that, right? And the dude betrayed her in some way. Because she seems to be way more disciplined in that area than the others are. Could just be because she's been there longer. Could possibly because she is sort of the number two to Artemis. So maybe she feels like she has to uphold it a little more. But I feel like it's a similar story to that, because Mr. D does kind of say, just ask Zoe Nightshade, and he's like, and Percy's like, what do you mean? And he's like, doesn't matter. So I feel like we are going to learn that, and there's something there. But so again, I do like this moment. I don't completely agree with it, but I do think it is tying very nicely to some very possible foreshadowing that's already happened, to what happened later, because we do know, I didn't write down the ding dang prophecy this time, but it's not good. Seemingly, I think what they sort of surmised is that two people are going to die, right? One and a half. One is sort of like, they say, oh, one will be lost in the land with no rain or something. So they're assuming that will die. Doesn't say death. There's lots of ways to interpret these prophecies, but not a good sign. The other one is death. It's like death at a parent's hand. What I think is important there is it says a parent's hand, not their parent's hand. So it's not necessarily like, for example, it doesn't necessarily mean that Percy will be killed by Poseidon or Thalia will be killed by Zeus. Like Percy could be killed by Zeus because that's what Zeus is, a parent. He's not Percy's parent, but he's a parent. So I feel like that's something to keep in mind as well. Maybe I'm just trying to like twist the words too much. Maybe it is directly Percy dies, their parent. I don't know. But that's just something that I want to throw out there. So yeah, bad stuff. And then just, I guess, real quick, we'll cover this. Speaking of the Oracle did give the prophecy outside of the attic. Chiron is spooked because the Oracle has never left the big house. I think he even says specifically the attic. She's never even left the attic, ever. So the fact that she did, this to me, I know obviously it is sort of a follow-up to the scene with Percy, where Percy goes up there trying to get a prophecy, and clearly that's not how it works. Clearly anyone can't just go up there and be like, I have a question. You can't do it. It does have to be specific people, specific moments, specific, I don't know, like circumstances, I suppose. Um, but I like when things like this happen because obviously this is the story we're reading, right? These are the characters, these are the events that are surrounding everyone, and this is why the story's about this. But it is interesting when it's like, this has never happened before. So clearly, we're in the middle of some very, very, very bad things. This harkens back to, I think Poseidon in book one possibly was like, Kronos stirs every 1,000 years or whatever. But for him to escape Tartarus is unheard of. And then Percy's like, yeah, but that's his plan. And then Poseidon just kind of has like this dark look, And so there's just more and more evidence of like, no, 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 this is different. Stuff is going to happen. Life changing, world breaking things are going to happen. And, sometimes there's just little tiny pieces of evidence like this, where it's like Oracle's never left anywhere. She's never left this attic, and now she does, and there's a prophecy. Come on. Come on. You know what I mean? Like, we have to heed the signs, you know, heed these warnings. Um, what else do we have? A lot of stuff. A lot of stuff. Um, I guess mostly just smaller stuff. I've kind of covered all the big chunks, but this is pretty big though. We have what happened to Annabeth, right? This is one thing I don't love about this book, and it's not like me critiquing the quality of the book. It's just like personal, certain characters I like, certain characters I don't like, whatever. Um, not a big fan of Annabeth kind of being sidelined in this book. Big Annabeth fan. Like her character, I like her dynamic with Percy, as well as other people. Um, so she's kind of sidelined. I'm like, it kind of sucks, but I understand the need for it. But they do have, where is she, right? She was basically bait for Artemis, right? She got taken, which I wonder if that was like the plan, because clearly, I mean, if it wasn't, this was a happy accident for Luke, and everyone, right? General, Kronos, whatever. But they basically use Annabeth as bait, holding up something, we're not sure, holding up like a dark magic ceiling or whatever, going to crush her. Artemis, they took Artemis, and they're like, oh, you're just gonna leave this girl here in never-ending torture right here? Are you gonna? Artemis, of course, couldn't do that. So Artemis is now holding up the ceiling. Annabeth is near death. Tricked Artemis, right? Couldn't resist helping a fellow maiden. Very clever, though. Very clever. I don't know why they needed Artemis so bad. They seem to be really on Artemis. Again, I think there is some grudge between, I think, the general and the hunters, possibly Artemis specifically, maybe Zoe specifically, or maybe just hunters in general. I'm not sure yet. But there's some grudge there. And I also suppose that Artemis is, they keep talking about how Artemis was the most outspoken when it comes to making a move, when it comes to this whole like Chronos stuff, So them trapping her here, keeping her here for the winter solstice, which is when they have their big meeting, that will help delay the gods' plans for another year, because they won't make a decision until the next winter solstice when everyone is there. So, very clever. Very clever. And then one other thing with the whole Annabeth situation, Luke, I don't remember, and again, reiterate this, read the whole series, well, up until book 5, because that's when the series originally ended, and then Rick made a 6th book, and I think he just dropped a 7th book or something. I'm just like, why are you making books that are sequels so much later? Like 15 years later, you're making a sequel. It's crazy. But anyway, what was I saying? Yes. So, even though all that is true, I don't remember. I think a big question is, are they going to redeem Luke's character? Because I think it's possible. A lot of work has to be done to do it, but I do think it's possible. I think it's possible to redeem his character because, I think at the end of the day, um, he does have resentment towards the gods, but I don't think that's strange. Like I feel like a lot of, possibly even the majority of half-bloods have resentment towards the gods, because it's like kind of brought them into this life. They didn't ask for it. Um, Also, because of it, at least one of their parents, um, worst case scenario, you have a scenario that happens a lot of them, right? Where it's like one of their parents is a god, so they never get to talk to him ever. So you don't really feel love on that side, and then your other parent, um, maybe resents you for the situation, maybe dies because of you being a half blood and they're being dangerous and everything. So it's like there's so I don't think resentment is like a strange thing, or at the very least, just like um, I don't know, negative feelings every now and again at least. Um, I think the big thing they have to get over is like him possibly trying to kill Percy and others, Dahlia, all that stuff. Like I said, it is a uphill battle, but I do think it's possible to redeem his character because when the whole Annabeth thing happens, he does try to save her, right? Like he does have some guilt, it seems, for tricking her into taking the weight of whatever they're holding up. And then also when I think the general's like, all right, we don't need this Athena daughter anymore. You can kill her. And Luke is like, whoa, no, hold on. We can still use her. She can still be, clearly he's doing that of like, wait, no, don't. I don't want to say Annabeth dead. Um, Again, though, is that the road to redemption for his character, or is that just he has a soft spot for Annabeth? Because when I was reading this, I was thinking that too. Where I'm like, they have soft spots for each other, like more on Annabeth's side because we've seen more of Annabeth. You can look at through her lens where it's like I don't think she likes him anymore like she did in book one. But I think those feelings have kind of passed. But I do think they've been through too much together for her to just completely toss any sort of, at least like friendship feelings towards him, right? Because it's like they went through so much before they got to Camp Half Blood, right? And then they both are two of the longest staying members at Camp Half Blood, right? So just it's been through too much together, Plus we saw her little like daydream thing when, the like mermaid things, whatever was there, and she got kind of lured in by them. Luke was in there, and it wasn't necessarily like, oh, I want to marry Luke. It was more so just like, I want Luke to be good and like get over this whole thing, like be friends again, you know. And then you jump back to this where we see Luke's perspective, finally a moment where we see Luke possibly reciprocate those feelings, where it's like, if he was truly cold hearted evil, he would have been like, yeah, kill her, you know? But he didn't. He was like, oh, no, wait, no, we can still, still use her. She can still be bait, blah, blah, blah. So I think there are feelings there of like, oh, we've been through too much together. I don't think he has that attitude towards Percy because they don't really know each other all that well. But with Annabeth, it's like we were like on the run together for a long time, and I think Thalia's in there as well. Um, it'd be interesting to see because I don't think Thalia and Luke have confronted each other yet. So it'd be interesting to see how he acts, how they act towards each other. You know, um, very interesting stuff, I think. Um, Other than that, just kind of a few quick things to note. Um, Percy and Thalia did start a fight after the capture the flag thing. Again, I think even though Percy's the main character, I do think he was in the wrong here. I think he should have stayed, um, because we have two children of the big three. Like you're powerful, you are skilled, you have talent. Um, have one run the offense, one run the defense. Like that makes sense for you to run in, and also think that Thalia couldn't handle it and like I don't know. Again, I think that he's used to it because he is, whether he wants to be this or not, he is propped up as like the guy a lot of the times. Especially with his victories in the past couple books. So it's not 100% his fault, but it is mostly his fault, and I I do think he should have just stayed and trusted Thalia. That's a big thing. He didn't put his trust that Thalia had a good offensive attack, right? Strategy, all that stuff. And so they fought a little bit. They threw some lightning and water at each other. Um, I do think, I don't think they hate each other. I don't think they resent each other in any sense. I think they actually do like each other a lot more than they even realize. Especially because they are very, very similar. Like when you watch them, they are two peas in a pod, for various reasons. But I think in that moment, everything kind of boiled over, because they just lost, against the Hunters. That sucks, but then also the whole Annabeth situation, like they both care deeply for Annabeth. Um, the whole like Luke and Chronos stuff, like that stuff, they both feel like they have to put on their shoulders as well. Um, I don't know if Thalia knows the prophecy about the whole 16 thing, but like Percy does, so I know that's on his mind. Um, it's tough. Like there's a lot of stuff. I think at that moment everything kind of came to a head, and they were like, each of them separate from each other was like, this is it. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. I have to just let something out, you know. Um, I do hope that we see more and more of them mending their relationship, and I would like to see them talk more. We haven't really seen that too much, and I feel like even at the very, very, very beginning of the book, they were like sort of like nipping at each other, and like Annabeth had to be like, "All right, guys, stop, chill out," So I would like them to kind of talk to each other and have like, and I think there's opportunity for them to do so. I would like them to kind of come together and be like, hey, like I'm Poseidon's kid, you're Zeus' kid. I know that we don't really get along or whatever. Our dads don't get along, but like, you know, we're here. We're apparently pretty important to this whole war that's happening. Um, we both care. We both share same friends and Annabeth and Grover and stuff like that. Like, it would be better for not only us but for everyone if we just kind of work together and we kind of push any sort of stuff aside. And so again, it's tough because again, these are children. you know, you kind of forget that I think Percy's like 14 and Thalia's like 16 or something. So they are children, right? But there are so many moments in book, not only this series, but like other books I read where I just wish two people would like sit down and talk and just be like, hey, you know, this is what's going on, you know. But yeah, I do like both Percy and Thalia, so I hope they kind of break everything down. A couple more things. One of those is something I don't think we should let slip away from us because I do think this is what Annabeth was referencing at the very beginning of the book. Um, she was having a conversation with Percy, a very nice moment where they were kind of dancing and they were, kind of just talking to each other, which again, I love those moments. Again, I love the action set pieces, but I also do love when two or more characters can kind of just have a moment together and just kind of let everything breathe. And I don't know, it's nice. But the important thing there was, Annabeth talking about the troubles at home and all that, and then it ended with her about to say something, about to tell Percy something. Hey, there's something actually, actually goes deeper than that. It's actually more important than that. Um, dot dot dot. And we never knew what that was going to be. Um, there was the slight fake out of her saying that her dad and family was moving to San Francisco, and even as she was talking, like she gave the energy of like, I'm not moving to San Francisco. I'm not doing that. There's also something over in San Francisco. I'm not sure what it is. As I was reading, I was even trying to like rack my like future knowledge brain to be like, what's over there in San Francisco? I don't know. The only thing I could think of is that, I mean, because she was like, because that's where that is. And it's just like, what? I'm assuming it's something evil where it's like, oh, New York is good, like this, like the East Coast is good because we got like Olympus is over here, Apple's over here, but the West is like far enough from Mount Olympus and all that where like evil creatures and monsters can sort of congregate. That's the only thing I can think of. Um, so like being on the West Coast is more dangerous than being on the East Coast because it's where Mount Olympus is, and Camp Half Blood. Um, but we have this thing that Grover sort of finds where it's like, oh, I bet you, and not all clicks. Where it's like, oh, I bet you that's what Annabeth was going to talk about. Where it's like, oh, Annabeth was considering joining the Hunters, which makes a lot of sense, because they talk and they're like, that would make sense as to why the Hunters got there so quick because the Hunters were already on their way to talk to Annabeth. Annabeth maybe contacted them or something in the past. Um, so that would kind of connect those dots. But then also it would make sense for like um, how reluctant she was to discuss it because we know now what joining the Hunters means. And I think the biggest thing is Annabeth wouldn't really see anyone ever again. It's possible that she would still see them from time to time, but Annabeth would be away on the whole Hunter thing. And also on a more personal level, which I think they have been kind of slowly building this up. Um, I think they have been slowly building up the whole Percy and Annabeth relationship. And so, obviously, her being a hunter kind of nips that right in the bud. So that'd be tough. It'd be interesting though. I don't know why though. I think that's kind of the question that's hanging in the air, where it's like, why would she join the Hunters? Aside from we get to be immortal and all that stuff, but like, why Annabeth? Why does Annabeth specifically want to do that? Um, like, is there something that sort of because again, like, is she okay with leaving her friends behind? Her family behind. Um, I don't know. I'm sure we'll have a discussion about it because the Hunters are obviously still here and they're a big part of the book. Um, Same as Annabeth, so I'm sure at the end it'll kind of all come together and be like, yeah, here's happening. If I were to guess, I would say she doesn't join the Hunters. And it's not really like a future spoilers type thing, because yeah, I don't even remember. I could say this and it could be completely wrong. But in my mind, I'm just like, wouldn't that mean that basically the next two books don't have Annabeth in it? Because like she'd be with the Hunters, and I don't know if they'd really want to break it up because like even after book one, where it was like, all right, Grover, gonna go see, have fun looking for Pan. Book two was immediately Grover contacting Percy and be like, I need you to come save me. You know what I mean? So even that, like, I don't really think they want to break up this friend group. Um, so I don't know. I just don't see it happening. Um, and I suppose the last thing, something that happens right in the beginning of the book, actually, is Thalia manipulating the mists, and Percy being like, "What the heck was that?" And Thalia being like, "Oh, what? I was just, I was just controlling the mist. I was just, kind of influencing what they saw and what they believe in everything. What did Chiron not show you that?" And Percy's like thinking his head. He's like, he most certainly did not. But it was something that they mentioned. I think again in book one, Chiron sort of mentioned it. Because Percy was going on his first quest, and Percy was thinking like, how, what are people going to see if I pull out a sword? Riptide. And Chiron does sort of say, and he does mention that, like, maybe in the future when we're training, I show you how you can even sort of like manipulate them, as you kind of control them and kind of bend them a little bit. Um, but again, that right there is interesting because one, they're not letting go of the idea. I like that. It wasn't just a throwaway comment. Like they're like, no, this is something that characters can do. Um, but then also it does show a little bit of a little bit of disparity between the Thalia and the Percy character. It does kind of remind you that, hey, oh yeah. Remember, Percy's our main character, but Thalia was here first, and Thalia was training and all that long before. Um, well, I mean, she wasn't really at Camp Half Blood, but she was fighting monsters and all that a lot, you know, before. Um, and then also again, just kind of reminds you of things that Percy does not know. You know, Percy again is our main character, but there are a lot of things he doesn't know how to do, a lot of the skills he does not have. Um, so yeah, I just thought that was something neat to kind of throw in there and be like, hey, don't forget this, because I feel like possibly it'll come into play later in the book, or maybe it won't. Maybe it was just a cool thing happens in this book, maybe future books. But again, you know, again, I do just really like when characters say things and it's not just throwaway comments. It's not just like, oh yeah, and you know, and we never see it again. It's like, no, this is something. So that's cool. And yeah, that is pretty much it. Enjoyed the first half very much. Obviously, next week we'll cover the second half, chapters 11 through 20. Finish up the Titan's Curse. Um, this is good, man. You know, in terms of predictions, I'm not really sure. Um, I imagine, because like every book has kind of had this big climax, right? Like the first one was them arriving at Hades and then also sort of fighting Ares. That's kind of like the 1-2 punch. Sea of Monsters was them fighting Polyphemus, the Cyclops. So this one I'm not really sure. I imagine it would be them facing off against Luke and the General. I believe that would sort of make sense. It's sort of what they're building up to. Um, I mean, as we leave off, we're still like in it. You know, like they beat the lion thing, but they still have like the other dudes, the other like zombie dudes that the general uh, rose from blood and teeth or whatever. So there's something there too. Like we're not out of it. You know, this is not a time to take a breath. This is a time to be like, we need to run. um, but yeah, because I'd say that's like the big thing that's happening now. Because even like, what is their quest even? Oh yeah, that to save. Completely forgot about the whole Artemis and Annabeth thing. Yeah, yeah. I guess they would have to. You know, we'll probably see them escape the situation and then somehow get to where, because like they don't even know really where to go. Like they have like some ideas and they have Grover sort of sniffing them out, but yeah. So I guess that's the other thing, right? Saving Artemis and Annabeth. Um, Also, the Titan's Curse. We don't know what that is. You know, apparently Chiron has a pretty good idea of what it is, but we don't know what the Titan's Curse is. So, oh, and one other thing, one last thing that I didn't write down that I guess I should have. Um, that thing is interesting. It really has nothing, like almost no impact on like the story and the plot itself, but you know, just like a normal person thing that I think was fun was when Percy was calling his mom was with someone. I think like Paul or something was his name. I thought that was cool because you know that was a very real moment of like, oh yeah, Sally is like a real character in this story, and she's not just the mom of the main character. Like she does have her own life, and so for it to be like, oh, it seems like Sally is having someone over, you know, which I think is nice. You know, we have the classic reaction from the son. It's like, what is happening, you know, which he's gonna have that reaction because he's the son. Like that's what he does. Um, but I do like the subtle character arc of Sally, where it's like, oh, she was strong enough to get rid of Gabe and find someone else, like a normal person that can hopefully have a normal, healthy relationship. Um, Very cool. Very cool. Um, yeah. So yeah, that was kind of the last thing. But that is that. Titan's Curse, Rick Riordan. Next week, like I said, chapters 11 through 20, we're going to finish up the book. Getting closer and closer to the end of the series, which is always exciting. We're now officially entering the second half of the series. Aside from the new books that are coming out, which we're not going to cover, maybe in the future, you know, after some time. But yeah, I guess that's it. That's it for this week. Good stuff. Until next time, I guess I read those chapters, and we'll see. We'll see what happens with. We're gonna see how the general is. Hopefully, we'll see what happens with Artemis and Annabeth. Like I said, hopefully Percy and Thalia are able to kind of really work as a team. You know, I really like to see that. And yeah, still waiting. Still cross my fingers for Mr. D to turn out like Snape and be low key caring about all the campers and Percy and the whole time. I really want a Snape situation because I really want to like Mr. D, but might just be wishful thinking. So